The worst Plants vs Zombies version is the Flash demo. Now before anyone tries to kill me, hear me out. Let me dig through this game and show everything it has to offer so I can show how it falls behind the rest. To start with, this is a Flash version of Plants vs Zombies. Flash was a powerful tool for the era, but it had very clear limitations. And you could see them as soon as you boot up the game. Oh, it's so blurry. The game here is running at 540 by 405. For reference, the original Plants vs Zombies runs at 800 by 600. And while this isn't the lowest resolution version of PvZ, it still looks blurry if you're familiar with it. But that's not all. All the animations also have way fewer frames, sound effects are compressed, effects are simplified, and so on. Basically, Flash isn't good at handling too much stuff. When you think about it though, the actual game is written in C++, meaning they had to remake all the code and adjust all the assets to make it fit within the constraints of Flash. That's pretty cool, honestly, even if it was just to make a worse overall game. Well, let's start. There is no opening cutscene, you are just thrown into 1-1. There is only one save file slot, so you never get to name your profile, so it just says your house, which is cursed. Anyways, the gameplay is Plants vs Zombies! To the shock of absolutely no one, the gameplay loop of PvZ isn't the most complicated thing, so converting it to Flash remains really faithful. The lower quality zombies have the unfortunate side effect of making it harder to know if a zombie is almost dead. Where is the bone in their arm? Are they all jelly now? Due to the lower resolution, the game is noticeably more cramped than it should be. The seed picker is bigger compared to the field versus the original, and the text before a wave has to go over 2 lines. Not a major deal, but it makes the game feel a bit less polished. So anyways, the first 4 levels are basically the same, but then we get to Walnut Bowling, and after the very large Crazy Dave, there is one major issue with this level. The nuts always bounce up. Arguably this is a good thing, since it removes the RNG, making things more consistent. But it's not like Walnut Bowling was ever hard, so it just leaves the top zombies to be going a little further on average. And it's a bit less fun not seeing a variety of bowling angles. That's not the only weird thing that happens in this level though, because after it's finished we get the squash. Yeah, no, we get the squash instead. I'm still trying to wrap my head around why exactly they made this change. While there's no code for the potato mine in the game that I could find, all of their sprites are still in the files. My guess is that they thought the squash was cooler, so they just replaced the mine in the code for squash, as an attempt to further entice you into buying the full game. Honestly though, potato mine might be the less useful plant out of the two, but an explosion would surely look cooler than what the squash does. Oh well, what do I know? By the way, if you're wondering how I got a look into the code, well, Flash games are surprisingly easy to decompile thanks to the JPEG's free Flash decompiler. A decompilation of code is never 100% accurate compared to the original code, but it'll give us the gist of what's under the hood. I want to give an additional shout out to the cutting room floor. They basically gave me the initial info before I started digging on my own. Continuing onwards to 1-7, we get to look at the seed picker screen, which they resized and turned into an advert for the full game. Fair enough. Clicking this does try to redirect you, but this and all the other links in here are now unfortunately dead. Beyond this, there aren't really any differences for the rest of the world. 1-10's conveyor belt maybe feels a bit different, but I didn't really verify this claim, so things get a bit more interesting again in 2-1 though. There is no money in this version, so the coin that is meant to drop in 2-1 never does, and you can never purchase anything. Probably for the best. I don't really want to think about how they'd add the extra seed slots to this cramped layout. The sunshroom in this game also feels like it takes forever to grow. Like I initially thought they just made it never grow at first, since it was just taking so long. But after what feels like a zombillion years, it does get bigger. Unfortunately, maybe I should have treasured that time while I had it, because before I knew it, at the end of 2-4, Crazy Dave comes out with some new dialogue saying how the demo is over and he kicks me out to an upsell screen. How rude. So the game ends here almost. While we can't play any further in adventure, they at least unlock the puzzle and survival modes. Starting with survival mode, we have survival endless, but at night. For every 2 flags, you're only able to bring in 4 plants, which is very interesting. And since we only have the plants we gained from the demo, this actually seems like a neat challenge, and it kinda is. But you will quickly see the major issue with this mode. Hey, did you forget this game was made in Flash? Yeah, the frame rate is atrocious here. It makes it much less fun than it could have been. Additionally, this game doesn't let you save progress mid-level, so if you ever want to quit, say goodbye to all your progress. PvZ Flash fumbling even its good ideas. It's not all bad though. Say hello to something unique to this version, the Giga Football Zombie. Or well, since the normal football zombie never appears in this version, it's simply called the Football Zombie. Don't let that fool you though, it very much deserves the Giga moniker. It has the same health as one, taking 2 insta-kills to get rid of, and it does just look large and menacing, wouldn't you say? Since we aren't really given super strong plants up to 2-4, the Giga Footballs end up being quite an issue to your defense. The Giga Football discs thankfully have one counter, and that's Chomper. Chomper don't care about HP, they just be eaten. That being said, good luck getting Chomper to eat the right zombie under this horde. I personally quit and then tried out Vase Breaker. Vase Breaker, or Scary Potter internally, is fine. As Jack-in-the-Box zombies and Gargantuas don't exist in this version, Dynamite can spawn from vases and Giga Footballs make a return. Now this is where I have to mention the fact that real Gargantuas do have a few references in the files and code here. Variables mention Gargantuas by name, and there are a few leftover sounds from them in the files. That being said, I doubt Gargs were meant to be in this demo, and this is just a result of copying files over from the full game and copying the code structure to an extent. The A-num extra Gargantuas variable I showed earlier actually controls how many Giga Football zombies can spawn in any given round. There is also this unused sprite showing a zombie vase, but this never gets used, and funnily enough it takes until Plants vs Zombies 2 before it ever shows up. I haven't really mentioned the actual Vase Breaker gameplay here, and that's because it plays like Vase Breaker, but with a very limited plant and zombie selection, so it's once again just worse. Dying in Vase Breaker gives you an upsell screen. There are 4 of these in the game depending on the last game mode you are in, and you can activate them in places like the title screen logo. One problem, however, you can only see 3 of them. The issue can be seen in this block of code here. The game tries to load an upsell screen for each section of the game, as I said. So what's the problem here? Well, survival and puzzle open up, but remember the minigame button never did, and those other 2 upsell screens only activate upon starting the game mode. That's not the only issue though. With the way this code is set up, it looks as though if none of the other modes have been played previously, then the minigame upsell screen should load up. But unfortunately not even that works, because upon starting the game, your default game mode state is set to 0. 0 also just so happens to be the game mode adventure, so even if you loaded up the game, you will be greeted with the adventure upsell instead of the minigame. To be honest though, we aren't missing much. It does look a bit rough, doesn't it? Now, while that's all the content available if you were playing the game normally, let's look at the other game files and some little hacks you could do. The most obvious thing you could do is opening up this XML file and changing this from false to true. This enables cheats. This was incredibly helpful for gathering footage, because this game would decide to wipe my save data for literally no reason every once in a while. You could do the following things with these cheats. Debug stuff, like debug info or changing the game speed. Plant stuff, like refreshing your seed slots or placing plants for free. Game progression stuff, like switching between levels. And spawning any zombie you want. This is probably the neatest part about the entire game. I can't recall any other version of PvZ that has cheats so readily accessible to you. Anyways, now let's go file rummaging. There is a text file here that contains every single string in the game, including a whole bunch of unused strings. Pretty obviously, most of this is just copy pasted from the full game. Like, I don't think the Tree of Wisdom was planned for this demo at any point. This also means the game is super easy to do text mods with. All the images and sounds in this game are actually in a separate flash file called resources compared to the main code. Only the loading screen assets make it into the main flash file, which I suppose makes sense. Music files also break this rule and are stored outside, apart from the title screen theme. By default, the title screen song never hits the drop, which is infuriating. There's lots of unused graphics and sounds in this game. I've already mentioned some of them, but I will say how even a lot of the unused stuff is still shrunken down into flash proportions. Now I know what you're thinking. Are there any secret levels? I hope you were thinking that. The answer is yes. If we set our save file to anything below 1-1, we can access a level where we can't do anything. I mean, it makes sense. Plants get given to you throughout the campaign, so playing something before the campaign starts would give us nothing. Believe it or not though, this level is still beatable. Since there are so few zombies that spawn, the lawnmowers are actually enough to win. This level is exactly the same for any level below 1-1 unfortunately, but the level counter does increment every time you beat a level. So if you are on 1-0, the game actually progresses to 1-1 like normal. And trying to set your save file to a level above 2-4 also works. Anything above 2-5 does not. 2-5 is a clone of 2-4, but beating it gives you nothing. The reason for this is pretty simple. Every level is assigned something to give you, but after 2-4 they set the drop to literally none. So nothing drops, and you can't continue. Fair enough, I guess. Well, I'm pretty sure you and I are now certified Plants vs. Zombies Flash demo experts. So now only remains the question, does this really deserve to be named the worst version of Plants vs. Zombies? To answer this, we first need to think about any possible contenders. The only games with worse graphics than this version are the DS and Java ME versions. Every other version of the game looks better and contains way more content, apart from the other Plants vs. Zombies demo they made. That demo can easily be eliminated from this discussion though, because not only does it run on the actual game code instead of Flash, so it looks and runs properly, but it also goes all the way to 3-4 instead. And honestly, I'm going to count out the DS version from this discussion too. The DS version is almost feature complete and contains some exclusive content, even if it looks much worse, and has some glitches, and lags more. The DSi version has a lot more of an argument, since it's the DS version, but it cuts out almost all the bonus content apart from the mini games. But that's just the thing, you still get a complete campaign and a whole suite of mini games, which is still a bunch more content compared to Flash. I think the graphic deficiencies are more than made up for, so that just leaves... Oh no. Okay, straight up, I would not blame you if you considered this the worst version instead. It's basically a question of which flavor of bad hurts you more. PvZ Flash has slightly worse graphics, but they're polished, very little content, lags a bunch, and hard to play today since Flash is dead. Java ME has way worse graphics and only one song total for some reason. A complete campaign but missing certain plants and mechanics, lags a bunch as well, and also really hard to play today. You need a Java ME phone or an emulator. I've now talked about the Java ME too much more than most people, I think. Anyways, you might think I'm being a bit too harsh on PvZ Flash. It is after all meant to be a demo and never wanted to be the full game, and to that I'd say, you're right, but it is still a unique version of the game nonetheless, and so I treat it as such. And the fact this demo can even compare to certain versions of the full PvZ makes it quite interesting. Basically what I'm trying to say is that despite everything, PvZ Flash does still hold up, just due to being the infinitely fun formula that is Plants vs. Zombies, even if it's the weakest execution of it. So yeah, that's it. Subscribe! If you want to see another time I talked about Java ME, albeit extremely briefly, check out my Kung Fu Panda game dive. Alternatively, you can check out this video on my second channel where I played some PvZ versus mode with a friend a while back. Alright, bye now.